Next up on the road to Euro 2024, Portugal. Under new manager Roberto Martinez, I say new relatively in terms of the fact that it's his first competition with Portugal. After managing, I couldn't even tell you how many with Belgium, a very experienced international manager with, I think, the strongest group of players out of anybody at this tournament in the Portugal squad. I know people will argue the England squad, which is obviously at a very high level, but with me, this Portugal squad has such a better balance to it in the sense that England have a great squad in terms of so many different options in so many different styles, whereas Portugal, I think, have a clearly defined style and a clearly defined type of player for each position. Only weakness, I would say, is there's maybe a slight centre-back issue of who could partner Ruben Diaz, but I think in Antonio Silva, player I've done a video before, you should go check it out. They have a really good young partner that complements Ruben Diaz well and complements how this team play. And this is after the friendly game against Finland, which they won 4-2. Did very well with it, and we're going to go off of that in terms of what we learned from that game. And we're going to get started with the in possession first. So when they play out, it's in this shape, as you can see here. Ruben Diaz and Silva as the two centre-backs. Palhinha showing deeper for the ball, with Vitinha and João Neves in front of him. Cancelo and Mendes pushing on alongside the midfield too. And the front three, as you'd expect, Leao and Conceição operating wide and in the half spaces as well, coming in narrow to get on the ball in these central areas where they can play in their triangles, play those quick little short snappy passes and get on the attack. But I would say they stay wide a lot more typically just to try and stretch that opponent back four. And they're very good at playing under pressure. And Ruben Diaz especially, they've got a fantastic press-resistant centre-back in terms of his technical ability. Antonio Silva is also very good at that. Still got a bit of developing to do. And if Palhinha's not playing in this position, you can see João Neves dropping in here as well, who's a lot more technically gifted. Again, I've done a video on him. Feel free to check it out. And very press resistant, very good on the half turn, and very good with his close control. But Palhinha isn't too bad in this position. He typically doesn't take it on the half turn, maybe as well as João Neves does, but will take it under pressure, play it to one of the two centre backs who can get it along around the outside. And because the two midfielders in a deeper state, that he will be able to outnumber most attacking presses and find a player in space. And there's not really a weakness of who can receive the ball in this area. And then when they beat that attacking press, this is how they line up further up the pitch. Now, the typical attacking shape for Portugal is the 3-2-5, commonly seen across Europe. Palhinha dropping in between the two centre-backs, splitting them. Vitinha and João Neves dropping deep and playing as the two eights in this formation. And then you get the overlapping and inverting of the wing-backs. Now, Nuno Mendes occupying the half space, as you can see here, with Rafael Leao out wide, and on the opposite side, Cancelo out wide, and Conceição in the middle of the pitch in that right half space. But they can interchange, both varying in how they come inside and who goes out wide. So there's a lot of fluidity and flexibility within this system. All are comfortable doing it in Cancelo and Nuno Mendes and Diogo Dalot, who we'll go over in a bit. They have fantastic fullbacks in terms of taking it on the inside and on the outside, technically gifted in all respects, and it's a great quality within those Portugal fullbacks. And if Rafael Guerreiro was available, you'd see the same from him, comfortable taking it inside and outside. For teams that are looking to dominate possession, having fullbacks that can come inside and outside is such a brilliant weapon to have, and Portugal have that in spades. And ultimately, it's those wide areas where Portugal look to attack through the most, so they'll build up in the wide areas, play the ball out wide, from Ruben Diaz coming into this position, whether it's Mendes or Leao that happens to be out there wide. The opposite will show for the ball inside the pitch, or maybe get Vitinha on that side coming to receive the ball in these areas. Ruben Diaz, who would be the wide centre-back in this position, maybe coming a bit closer to receive it and having the defence switch along. They would try and play through these areas with their little triangles, with their overloading of the wide areas to try and get space down where they can try and create space in these areas to get the ball out wide for a crossing opportunity from Nuno Mendes or whoever, to whip the ball in for Jota or Gonzalo Ramos to get on the end of, or to look for the more direct runs from one of the two attackers. Let's say Nuno Mendes has it here, then you can easily find Rafael Leao behind the defensive line through this area here. And if they can't build up with these wide overloads, they'll send it back to one of the deeper players. Ruben Diaz, Palhinha and Neves especially are great at this, with the long diagonal switch over onto the right hand side that will have a lot of space due to the Finland or opposition defence being pushed over to the opposite side, and they can try and attack through that side. And it's the quick pass over onto this side of the pitch that can catch teams out. So let's say Conceição gets the ball here, then Cancelo can make this movement into the box to receive it and create an opportunity from there. And the technical quality within that Portugal midfield is huge when it comes to it. João Neves, I thought, was excellent against Finland. I thought Ruben Dias was in that first half before he got subbed off, in their ability to manipulate the ball from side to side. It's also not uncommon to see the more attacking midfielder in this position to move up into the attacking area of the pitch, trying to outnumber the opposition's defensive line, finding space in between the lines as well. Just a real overload of quality that they can play through in these areas and force the opposition's defence to come in a lot more narrow and try and congest the middle of the pitch to prevent them from creating danger, which then gives more space to the wide areas. And as I say, comfortable switching it from side to side, really direct long passes. I think it got a lot better in the second half, where, if I just make a few substitutions, where Gonçalo Ramos came on for Diogo Jota, who did a decent job dropping in and linking play and put his penalty away well. Diogo Dalot coming on for João Cancelo, who didn't really get as involved in the first half as Dalot did in the second. And Bruno Fernandes came on for João Palhinha, and João Neves dropped into this deeper area. Now, João Neves in this position is a lot more comfortable at receiving the ball and playing a more possession-based and tempo-dictating game than João Palhinha is, just a lot cuter with his passing and was comfortable receiving it and taking the touch out of his feet to find the passes in between the line or the long diagonals out to the wide areas. Just a real well-rounded passer, just a lot more comfortable with the ball at his feet than Palhinha, and there's definitely a breakout tournament ahead for João Neves. Bruno Fernandes as well, with his playmaking abilities in the deeper areas and the more advanced areas to provide a threat. And the vertical movement of Diogo Dalot as well was brilliant. He added a lot more dynamism with that. I think he's a better off-the-ball mover than Cancelo. I think Cancelo is a better technical player and provides a lot more of an outlet on that right-hand side. And Bernardo Silva, I think, will suit playing with Dalot. I personally think Dalot will go on to be the first choice. Not necessarily sure he starts as the first choice, but I think becomes that through form in the tournament, in my personal opinion. I think Cancelo gets that freedom to start because of his reputation, which I completely understand. And there were more changes. Ruben Dias went off the pitch and was replaced by Ignacio, and Leao went off the pitch to be replaced by Pedro Neto. A bit more like for like, and I think those were downgrading in qualities, whereas the other substitutions presented different options. And Bruno Fernandes is going to be pivotal to how this side play with his playmaking in these areas. The passes he can make to find the vertical runs of these players and get the ball quickly switched from side to side to attack down the opposite side when play breaks down is going to be key to Portugal's success this tournament. And showed his quality with two very good goals, with making late runs into the box to get on the end of pullbacks from these wide areas. Showed his attacking quality as not just a creator but a goal scorer. I think Ramos's link-up play is going to suit this a lot, which is why I think he might start the tournament. I will say, you can't go into this tournament starting Ronaldo. Many of you may not agree with that. That's my personal opinion. He is not built for a game plan. He never has been and he never will be. Ronaldo is served to get the best out of Ronaldo. That's the transaction you make with him. And I just think how good and how balanced this team is with a striker that's good at dropping deep and by using his body as a target to get against centre-backs from crossing and open play opportunities to lay it off to his supporting teammates is huge. Ronaldo is just a goal scorer. This Portugal team do not need just a goal scorer. So that's my opinion. So we've gone over Portugal in possession. How are they out of possession? We'll have a look. So when they lose the ball, the front five players, the 2-8, the wide players and the striker will counter-press and try and win the ball back as quickly as possible in these areas, which also gives a little bit more freedom for the fullbacks to retreat into space. Because while Portugal do counter-press really well, they're not a high-pressing team as such. They like having that strong defensive base with the back four and the holding midfielder, or even two holding midfielders when the situation comes. They do win the ball back and create chances from these positions, but that is not their main defensive game. And once the press is beaten, or once the team have held onto the ball past that 6-second mark, they'll drop in. And it'll be Bruno Fernandes and Vitinha in front of Neves, who occupies space in between the lines. Conceição drops back into the right mid position, and Leao into the left back position, and Ramos or Jota as the striker. And they defend these situations really well. It's a good mixed block which Portugal have, because while there is a weakness in defence with the fact they lack a bit of mobility, I don't really feel like that gets as exploited at international level the way it does at club level. And I think having big physical players that are good in the air, that can dominate these aerial 50-50s is huge, which these two can. Diaz and Silva, fantastic in the air, and if I just swap Neves out, Palhinha back in, are going to be crucial to their defensive quality in the tournament and their ability to win games. And as far as an international spine goes, Silva, Diaz and Palhinha is as good as it gets. That will win them big games and be the difference, in my personal opinion. You may look at that and think that there is a little bit of space left either side of Palhinha, and if I just move the opposition team forward. And while there is that space, as you can see here, that the attacking tens can drop into, Portugal have very good stopper centre-backs that can move into these positions and win the ball back high alongside Palhinha to prevent him from getting isolated in this area. So Diaz coming in here aggressively, winning the ball back, forcing turnovers that Fernandes or Leao or whoever's in position can win the ball and force a counter-attack to try and get the ball into the box as quickly as possible. So they're set up to receive the ball in these situations. The issue is if they get beat in that press, then you're leaving the centre-backs exposed, and full-backs who aren't amazing defensively couldn't fail to cover that area, and it's going to leave Silva or Diaz with a lot of work to do, especially against a pacey attacking player. But the physicality they bring, winning the aerial 50-50s in this position, and their ability to win these aggressive on-the-ground 50-50s is key. And when there's the threat of this back four getting exposed for whatever reason, let's say if Ruben Diaz or whoever hasn't made the decision to come and press this area, you will see them drop in a little bit and protect the space in behind, because as I've said before, they aren't the most mobile. Palhinha will drop in as well, and typically you'll have either Vitinha or Fernandes that's a little bit deeper to try and recover in these areas. So they set up well in defence, and look, I know he's not had the greatest reputation for a number of years, Roberto Martinez, but he's a manager with international experience that I think has got a group of players that suits his playing style, and I think it's the perfect balance for team, I think it's the perfect balance for manager, and this is why Portugal are my favourites to win this entire tournament. Great dynamic attacking play with top class individuals and a great defensive shape that will stifle a lot of attacking teams in this tournament. But we'll see. We won't really know anything until we get into the tournament. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are, though. Cheers, lads. In a bit.